Alright, let's get the marker ready. We're going to finally, this is what, like part 27 of section 13.7 it seems like. Seems like it's taken forever to go through this. But let's write it down again. I thought I changed that. Now we did it. Okay. So it's section 13.7 again. Who knows what it is on YouTube at this point? It's like part 18 or something. I don't know. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the inverse functions today. And so we've talked about the sine, we've talked about the cosine. Just as review, I thought we would just do this one more time. Before we started recording, we were reviewing a little bit about how to find the cosine and sine. Let's do it very, very quickly here. Alright, and just so that we have a good idea of what's going on. Like this. Oops. Alright. Again, these are the important points for all this stuff. Alright, these are the important points, and these should be basically memorized, or you should be able to visualize what these points are in your head. Let's go through it again. This point right here. And again, this should be it should be in your head. You don't have to. I mean, you could always jot this thing down if you needed to, all right, if you weren't able to do this in your head. But you should get to the point where you should just visualize this. So if I said, what's the cosine of 0 degrees, you should know it is just by thinking about it and not looking at something, not putting it into a calculator. Does that make sense? So, and it's pretty easy, because if you know the ordered pairs, remember we're dealing with a unit circle. What's the ordered pair right here at 0 degrees? That's 1, 0. What about 90? That's 0, 1. And 180? Negative 1, 0, and at 270, 0, negative 1. And of course 360 would be the same thing as 0 degrees. Now remember, what's the cosine? Which one of the things in the ordered pair, which one of these parts of the ordered pair is the cosine? It's the x, it's the first one. Okay, the first one is the cosine, the second one is the sine. How can you remember that easily? Alphabetical order, good. Okay, just remember, it's in alphabetical order. So cosine first, sine second. Can you remember that? This is something we've talked about for quite a while now, so it should just, you should just think of it just like that. So, if this is 0 degrees right here, I won't even put the degrees on here. You realize what they are at this point. This is 0 degrees. What's the cosine? Just looking at this. What's the cosine of 0 degrees? Quick, quick, quick. It's 1. What's the sine at 270? Negative 1. What's the cosine at 180? Negative 1. Right, it's 180. It's negative 1. You follow me? So, as quick as I say it, you should just look at these ordered pairs and be able to figure it out. Now, if I didn't have it in front of you, you might have to think a little bit in your mind, visualize the x and y axis and, try to figure out what point is on there. It might take you another, couple seconds, but you should be able to do this in your head, all right? Quiz yourself once in a while. Quiz each other. That seems like a little dorky, but that's okay, all right? We're all math geeks anyway here, right? We're all big family of geeks, and there's no problem with being a little geeky out there and quizzing somebody. Say, hey, what's the sine at 90 degrees? Jordan, what's the sine at 90 degrees? The sine at 90 degrees. All right, you're not geeky enough. You got to get a little more geeky here. All right, so it's 1, isn't it? The sine at 0 or 90 degrees is 1. Is everybody okay with that? What we do is we take this and we translate it to an x and y coordinate plane, is what they call it. All right, okay, x and y axis. So what we're going to do, which one do you want to do? Cosine or sine? Just pick one. Cosine, thank you. So we're going to do y equals the cosine. All right, so we'll do the cosine of the angle, or you can put x here. It doesn't make any difference. So let's put some points in. At 0 degrees, looking at this, what's the cosine at 0 degrees? It's 1. So you come over here at 0 degrees, you put a dot at 1. Let's go to 90 degrees, right? We're just doing the quadrantals. They're the ones. They're the important ones. They're the ones where that it either goes through, or it starts and it comes back up, or whatever. All right, those are important points. So let's put in 90 degrees. What's the cosine at 90 degrees? It's 0. So at 90 degrees, see that graph? At 90 degrees, we put a dot at 0 on the y-axis, right? It's kind of like doing an x and y chart. What about this right here? What's the cosine at 180 degrees? It's negative 1. So at 180 degrees, we drop down here to negative 1. Let's keep going. 270. Cosine of 270 is 0. So 270, 0. See how it translates from this circle to this straight line graph? Then let's go back to 360 again. What's the cosine at 360? It's 1. That's really all the points we need. Now if you look at it, it looks like it's just straight, but we have a general idea of what this thing's going to look like, don't we? All right. basically every 90 degrees it hits one of those key points. If you want to start it over here, where would we go? Well, we go to negative 90. Where would negative 90 be? Just kind of looking at your pattern, you should be able to see it without even looking at this thing right here. Just looking at this pattern that it goes like this, it's going to go like this as well. Where do you think it hits the 0? At negative 90. Let's keep going. What's at negative 80? Where do you think it hits? Negative 1. And then at negative 270, where do you think it hits? Right there. You okay with that? So if we wanted to start it out here, we could. Now, I'm a little shaky on this, but I'll do my best. Alright, and then it comes up like this. Oops, kind of humps over. Goes down like that. Oops, almost did it without picking it up. Oh, a little squiggly. And then like that. Alright, if you wanted to, you could go over 90 more, couldn't you? Where would 90 more be? 450, right? If you just wanted to continue it out a little bit. Do you see that? Alright, and that's what a cosine looks like. That's how you graph a cosine. Does it make any sense? Okay. Now, let's just see what it looked like over here. I've got a cosine all ready to go, and there it is. Alright, that's not too bad. I was off a little bit, okay, but, you know, handwriting, especially on this little pad thing, is a little squiggly. It's not as easy as on paper, but you got the basic idea. Alright, does that help a little bit? Does that clear things up on how to graph one of these things? That's what you think. You're thinking that unit circle, you're thinking those key points, and you're just putting them here, and then you just kind of connect them with a nice smooth curve like this. We good? Alright. Now, that's enough of that. Let's talk inverses now. Alright, so this is, let's stick with this one. We got it up here. This is the cosine. What's the inverse function, trig function, of the cosine? Do you remember what it is? It's the secant. That's right. So now what we're going to do is we are going to graph, we'll stick with red, we're going to graph the secant of x, or theta, whatever you want to call it. I'll call it theta. Alright, so it's the inverse of it. This is a little bit weirder. I don't know if I probably should do this. Yeah, let's do this. Let's put theta in here, and what I'm going to do, this is going to be a little bit weirder, but I'm going to put the cosine, or yeah, I'm going to put the cosine in this. It's kind of like an XY chart, but I got 3 different things here instead of 2, because I want to compare. I want to compare the secant with the cosine. Why am I comparing those two? Because they're what? They're inverses of each other, aren't they? Alright, so I'm going to put the secant right here. Figure out what it is. Now remember what the secant is. It's just the inverse of the cosine. So if I figure out what the cosine is, guess what? I just take the inverse of it. How do I take the inverse of something? I do what? Yeah, the reciprocal. It's 1 over whatever that is. So let's put some key points in here. Let's go, remember, we're doing cosine. So let's put 0 degrees. And actually, let's put some of those in between ones. I want to see what it looks like with some of those in between ones. So we'll just go to 90, and maybe we'll go to negative 90. So if I can fit those in here. So let's go 30. Let's go 45, 60, 90. Yeah, we'll just put this in because they're, we'll see. Let's just do this. I'm trying to think ahead of the best way to do this. Let's put a 0 degree in here. So again, if you want to see this, if you want to visualize this, I'm not even going to put the ordered pairs there, but at 0 degrees, what's the cosine? It's 1. What's the inverse of 1? What is it? It's 1, yeah, it's 1 over 1. Okay, it's just the inverse. The inverse is just 1. Very good. Okay, what about 30 degrees? 30 degrees, if we visualize it, it's this right here. Now, I went a little far, but 30 degrees, again, the cosine, that's the longer side. What's the longer side? Good, square root of 3 over 2. So it's the square root of 3 over 2. That's the cosine. In order to do the secant, what do I need to do? And by the way, what was the square root of 3 over 2 on your calculator? It was like 0.87, I believe. Now, I don't have the inverses of those memorized, but we can do that. What's the inverse of this? It's 2 over square root of 3. If you want to, just put that in a calculator. Let's get a decimal approximation so we can kind of see where it is. All right? What's 2 divided by the square root of 3? Or you can just take the inverse of 0.87. But put 2 over square root of 3. And what do you get? Haley, what'd you get? 1.2. Okay, that's good enough. All right, good. 1.2. So we're going to plot that. Let's do 45 degrees. 45 degrees was the square root of 2 over 2, or it was around 0.71, I think. All right, let's do that in the calculator. Put 2 divided by the square root of 2 and see what we get. 1.4, okay. And let's put a 60 in here. What was the cosine? Yeah, 60 degrees. Okay, sorry. Got a little confused. Okay, cosine is like this. Or that's 60 degrees, I'm sorry. What's the cosine? It's the short side. So what's the short side? It's a half. All right, that's easy. That's easy to find the inverse of that. What's the inverse of a half? It's 2. All right. What about 90? Let's do that. What's the cosine at 90 degrees? Or we could even just look here. What's the cosine at 90 degrees? That ordered pair is 0, 1, so it's a 0. This is a little bit weird. What's the inverse of 0? You ever think about that? We are. Wow. Oh.